if you're in a marriage that's struggling or in a relationship that is having challenges, if you're escalating, if you notice that, you're getting triggered or your spouse is getting triggered really quickly and that is becoming a problem, then this is for you. This is one of those things that's really fundamental. All the tools and all of the things that people learn, communication techniques, implementing emotional connection, being able to problem solve and move into the us place, all of these advanced skills really will never take hold if we're still reacting in the marriage. So if you've ever walked away from a fight thinking, why did I blow up so fast? Or that's not what I meant, or I feel misunderstood, but things are just going 0 to 90 really quick, then this is going to be really important for you to internalize and send this to your spouse as well if you feel like this applies to them. The truth that I think a lot of couples don't realize is that it's not about communicating badly. It's really about the nervous system that's going into survival mode. So you have the tools, you understand what not to say. I mean, there's been lots of times where I'm like, I'm not going to say that anymore. And then I do. And then I'm like, shoot, I did it again because it just happens so fast, right? When your nervous system is dysregulated, it doesn't matter what you know. So when conflict hits, then your brain is just going to start treating your partner like a threat instead of the person that you love the most. And that's why I think small moments feel really big. And people say all the time to me, like, I don't even know why we were fighting. It was so dumb. It was so little. It was so inconsequential. I don't understand why this turned into such a huge ordeal. I don't even know what we were fighting about, right? Or you'll have the same fight over and over again, even though you already resolved it, because something's getting kicked in. And then it makes repair impossible, even when both of you want the marriage to work. So today, what I want to talk about is I'm going to share what are the symptoms of reactivity if you're wondering if this is you, because there's varying levels of reactivity. What causes reactivity biologically, what's actually happening inside of your body and your bond when reactivity takes over. I'm going to share with you the problems that this causes specifically in marriage. Then we'll look at specific ways that if you can master these reactive patterns, that will actually turn your marriage back into a safe, harmonious place. So in other words, what will it look like when you can master reactivity? And then how we can do this finally, right? That's what it's all about. This does take time. I will say it's not something we're going to get done in one day, but sharing with you the things that need to happen in order to master reactivity. So the first thing, the symptoms of reactivity, if you're like, is this me? Does this really apply? You'll know that reactivity is an issue if you have the same fight on repeat, even though you've already resolved it and you've already decided how you're going to do it differently next time. Reactivity is going to keep you in looping arguments that don't resolve, because even though the content might change or the situation might change, the pattern is not changing. The defensiveness, the escalation, the shutdown. Maybe you're not a person that escalates, but you're somebody that just shuts down in order to feel safe when your nervous system is dysregulated. The other thing you'll notice is that you have little emotional safety, if any at all. You might have no emotional safety. So obviously, if one of you is reacting from anger or fear or shutdown or withdrawal, the nervous system is going to read that as unsafe. I'm turning towards them in distress. They're pulling away. They're not safe, right? This is a primal thing, even though you know, like intellectually, it's not that you're not safe physically, unless you're in an abusive relationship, which is a separate issue. So I'm not speaking to that today, but your brain, your amygdala will register cues, nonverbal cues, even when somebody shuts down, even though they're not doing anything that actually is a real threat. It feels that way because that primal connection, that attachment to your person is what we register as safety in the nervous system biologically. And so when that's happening, partners stop being honest, they stop being vulnerable, they stop using the tools, right? People go into fight or flight or flee as a protective mechanism. And so safety is the first thing that goes when you're reacting. The other thing is that repair attempts are going to fail. Even well-intentioned apologies are just not going to land. Or maybe you're trying to extend an olive branch, but that's getting missed by your partner because they're still dysregulated. Or maybe you're saying the right words, but your tone and your energy doesn't match your words. And so there's incongruence. You're saying the perfect thing, but you're saying it in an angry tone. They're not going to hear that, right? And it's just not going to land. That creates hopelessness. And you might end up feeling like, why bother? Like, why bother even trying at all? Because I'm doing all the things and nothing is making a difference. Now, the last thing I want to mention is that identity gets reduced to the pattern when you're in reactivity. So your identity in the relationship, which is a really big part of relational transformation, if you want to change your dynamic, if you want to have a certain kind of relationship, the first thing you have to do is look at, well, not only what does that look like and how does my partner show up, but how do I show up? Who am I? What kind of person do I have to be to not only create this, but sustain it for the long term, even when something's happening that I don't like, right? And so our identity is a really big part of transformation. And you start to see each other as not a whole person, right? You start to see each other as the attacker or the avoider or the problem, and you start putting labels on each other. And then the love that you have kind of gets buried underneath those labels that are really just coming from protection, again, from the nervous system. So what's happening? What is causing the reactivity biologically? This is really simple. This is just, I'm going to keep this really simple. And then if you want to do a deeper dive on this, you certainly can look into this. There's a lot of information out there about this and how the brain works. We talk about, the prefrontal cortex is our thinking, creative, intelligent mind. And that's what makes us able to transcend our conditioning, because we know intellectually something else is possible, even though we haven't experienced it consistently, but we know it is. And so that's what drives us forward. That's what allows us to evolve as humans, right? And not just be trapped by our biological conditioning. But when the nervous system is being dysregulated, that's the biological thing that comes from the back of the brain, the limbic brain, and the amygdala. And so the emotions are going to take over, and then you start to feed your emotions. If you feel vulnerable, you will feed that feeling with a thought, right? And then whatever emotions get activated physiologically, we then reinforce with our thinking, and then we stay stuck. The threat detection is going to override reasoning. This is the thing to be aware of, is that when you have a conflict with your spouse and they turn away from you or they raise their voice at you, the amygdala perceives that as like, oh, I'm under attack. I have to protect myself either by fighting or by shutting down. I mean, this is what we do. Like when you hear about somebody who's been sexually assaulted and they say, I don't know what happened, but I just froze. This is a survival mechanism. We will play dead, we will freeze, we will run, we will fight, we will attack, whatever the situation calls for, or whatever worked for us in the first 7 years of our life. How were we safest? That's what is going to get activated. And this was conditioned in you before you had a choice. That's the thing to realize. But the amygdala will activate, and then the prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for logic and empathy and choice, conscious reasoning, totally goes offline. Like it's not physiologically available to you. That's why smart, loving people say things that they later regret. Right? Like, dang it, why did I do that? Why did I say that? You have to be compassionate to yourself that this is what happens. It's not a personal failure, it's biology. And then the autonomic nervous system will basically take the wheel. You're not in charge anymore. And so reactivity is a body-based response. It's not a character flaw. I promise it has nothing to do with love or commitment. You could love your spouse so much, you could be so committed to them, and you're still struggling with this. No matter what good person you are, no matter what you've learned, you might be seeking, you might have read all the books, you've gone to therapy, you've done a lot of work. But everybody has some patterns of reactivity. It's just a matter of degree. And how destructive are they? How frequent are they? How intense are they? That's what you want to look at. So most of the time, what your mind registers as safety is going to come from your conditioning that occurred before you even got with your partner. Like if you've ever been in a conversation with your partner and you are starting to get a little bit worked up or a little irritated, if you slow things down and you were to rewind it, like on a slow, those slow motion cameras on a sports game. I'm not a sports person. I'm probably not using the right language, but you replay it and you go, what actually happened? What were the moves? You might notice that it was something really subtle. They turned away from you. They cleared their throat. They sighed. They rolled their eyes. They did something. They didn't say a word, but some cue went into your brain as, I'm not safe. This person doesn't have my back. This person doesn't think well of me. We are no longer connected, and now they are being perceived as the threat. And so, of course, this is going to lead to criticism, blame, control, avoidance, shutting down. So fight looks like criticism, blame, and control. Flight looks like avoidance, shutting down, stonewalling, ignoring, silent treatment, or just leaving. Freeze is numbness, dissociation, and silence. I feel really bad. I'm not a freezer. I feel really bad for freezers because I think how it comes across, they feel very misunderstood. It comes across as you don't care. But really, they can't think. They're literally just it's just gone. Like the brain is gone and they look like they're detached. They look like they don't care at all. And it hurts their spouse so much. And they know that it is, and they don't know what to do about it, right? It's perceived as an act of aggression, like passive aggression, but it really is coming from a place of survival. So just keep that in mind. And remember that old attachment and trauma pathways are going to get activated. If you have any attachment trauma, if you have any emotional neglect in your history, or even just witnessing abuse, or maybe your family members, your caregivers, your parents were really, really busy all the time. They loved you so much, but they just weren't there for you and you felt really alone. That also is some kind of attachment trauma, even if there was not an absence of love. So, and I'm not trying to pathologize anybody, and this certainly isn't about blame, but it's just recognizing the impact and how the brain actually works. Because I think sometimes, I mean, I hear people all the time beating themselves up, and I know I've done this too, where it's like, why is it that I would assume what I'm assuming when I know better, right? And it's because your body also has a mind. Your body is your subconscious mind. And so it will kick up these chemicals of these feelings that are coming from this belief that you're not even really aware that you're having. So the problems that reactivity creates in marriage, specifically, I've touched on this already, the blame and all this stuff, but basically reactivity is going to flip the attachment bond upside down. And so the very person that your nervous system is designed to seek for comfort and safety, it becomes the source of danger. Like I said before, this is going to create things like hypervigilance, mistrust, emotional distance, even when love is still present. And this can last for days. Like maybe you just had a minor little thing. Maybe your partner feels like everything is fine, but there's just something that you feel where you don't feel as close. And so you're not getting ahead of things that could build, right? Conflict, another thing when reactivity is in charge, is that conflicts that you have they feel really like deal breakers. You go into catastrophizing. It feels existential. It feels not situational. It feels like you globalize. This is how they are. This is how it is. I can't have what I want. Like globalizing beliefs or thoughts come out of reactivity. It's a very reactive way to think. Marital reactivity doesn't feel like we just disagree, right? We're having a disagreement. You're not on the same side of the table when you're in reactivity. You're thinking, I'm not chosen. They don't care about me. I'm alone. This marriage may not survive. I can't live like this. This isn't going to work for me. I'm done. I can do better than this, right? You're going into this like, I've got to push myself away from this person or this relationship, or I've got to cling on to it like my life depends on it, because it's become about much more than the thing that you're actually arguing about. The pursuer withdrawer role gets locked in really hard when you're reactive. Reactivity will polarize you, right? So one partner's escalated to restore connection. They're really anxious about it. The other person shuts down because they don't feel safe because they don't trust maybe themselves and they don't know how to respond in a healthy way. And each reaction is going to confirm the other person's worst fear. And it's this terrible loop. And to make matters worse, and this is the subject of another talk, we actually unconsciously choose our partners because they're going to activate the very things in us that need to be healed. So it is a double whammy, unfortunately. Now, that doesn't mean that you're not with the right person. It just means that you've chosen the person who is creating some kind of familiar experience for you that is meant to heal in the container of your relationship. So if you can become really conscious and master your reactivity, your relationship can become a healing container, even if you're pushing each other's buttons in a way that feels pathological. And finally, the co-regulation breaks down. So one person getting dysregulated is going to actually make the other person dysregulated. Now, if one of you is really, really calm, that's amazing. The other person is dysregulated. Then the calm person can try to help the other person if you stay calm, then you can co-regulate your spouse. But most of the time, unless you've been practicing this for a long time, the co-regulation will break down. One person starts to react, acts out of that reaction. Then the other person gets activated. Now they're acting out their reactive patterns. And now you have a perfect storm. So one partner's spike will pull the other person out of regulation. And that will create this loop that feels impossible to stop. And this is why people get divorced. This is why people split up. They really feel like there's no way out of this because they're spending too much time in this reactive pattern. But you can't make a decision about your marriage based on your reactive pattern. You have to make a decision about your marriage based on your capacity to break out of the reactive pattern. You don't measure the reactive pattern and say, this is happening so much, we should break up. Instead, what you want to do is say, this is happening too much, We have to engage in these other things to break these patterns, to find out what's possible. If your life dreams overlap, if you love each other a lot, if you really both want to stay together and you're both willing to do the work, at least if one person is willing to go first and the other person is open to the changes that the other person is making, then absolutely your reactive patterns don't have to dictate your future. Yeah, all it is a symptom. And it's something that will help you look at, okay, this is a problem. If we don't fix this, this could take us out. This could get us to the point of no return. The good news is, as I'm describing this, if you can recognize these patterns in your own marriage, you might be feeling very discouraged, especially if you've been doing this for years and years and years. My husband and I had a very reactive pattern in our relationship. And I'm happy to say that that's not the case anymore. And I swear to you, if I can do it, you can too. Mastering reactivity means you're slowing down the time between the stimulus and the response. And if you can do that, everything in your life changes, not just your marriage. But for most couples, I think this one thing will change everything. And then all of the tools that you have, then it becomes possible to use those tools to implement your insights in real time when it really counts. Then you'll be able to create a relationship where your partner becomes your safe place again, where your conflict stops feeling like the end of the relationship, where it doesn't feel like, oh my God, I'm out of here. This is it. It's like you just realize that your disagreements are about the issue at hand. It's not about, I'm not good enough. It's not about, I'll never have a healthy relationship, or my spouse is just beyond repair, or whatever it is. You can get into the us place and you're on the same side of the table trying to solve a problem that you share. It's us against the pattern, not me versus you. The third thing is that repair happens much faster and it's effective. And this is a huge thing in the research with Dr. John Gottman. He said it's not about coming out of harmony. It's not about coming out of connection. There will always be ruptures in a happy marriage, a marriage that goes the distance, right? We've talked about this before. 69% of problems in a marriage are not solved. But when you have a ratio of 5-1 or higher, 10-1, or like a really happy marriage is like 20-1, positive to negative, then those things are not a big deal. They're just marginal in comparison. So when you're able to stay regulated or you know how to regulate after a rupture, then you can say an apology that will actually land. You will be able to communicate an acknowledgement of impact, a commitment to make a change, to extend an olive branch from the energy that matches that. So that will actually land. Accountability is going to feel sincere among both of you, and reconnection doesn't have to take days or weeks. Recovery time between a rupture and reconnection gets much shorter. And that helps to rebuild trust in the relationship. And the better it gets, the better it gets. The more often you repair, the more time that goes between those ruptures, the more your perceptual filter of the relationship changes, the more you start to see your spouse through a different lens. And then that makes you less reactive in the first place, right? So it really is sort of like a positive loop that you can get in. You also regain choice instead of reacting on autopilot. That's obvious, right? Mastering reactivity restores your access to curiosity, to empathy, to intentional communication, to awareness of what's going on inside of you. Oh, this is coming up. What's this about, right? Curiosity, not just about them and what's going on for them, but about your own self. And you can respond from your values and your vision as opposed to from fear. And this can happen even when your emotions are strong. You can be non-reactive even when your emotions are strong. That's the thing to remember. Emotions don't cause reactivity. It's the meaning that we give those emotions that causes the reactivity. And it's the inability to pause and to stay connected to yourself when that's happening. The other thing that gets better in your relationship is that desire and intimacy, also just affection and closeness, wanting to be near each other, wanting to spend time together, wanting to be in the same room with each other, all of that. Safety is a gateway to intimacy in all the ways. So when nervous system is not in survival mode, then emotional connection and desire and playfulness and lightheartedness, where you can give each other a hard time, right? And it's funny and you can make fun of yourself. You can have a laugh about what happened. That's the best feeling in the world. Then you know, okay, we have a broader perspective of things. We're not going down into this biological rabbit hole of like, oh my God, I'm about to die, right? It's like, this is just funny. We're human and these things happen. And so it's that groundedness that you get from non-reactivity. And then finally, and I touched on this before, your marriage starts to feel like you're on the same team again. No more me versus you. It's us versus the pattern. This is the sense of partnership and resilience and shared purpose, right? You're going to have a place where your life dreams overlap. You're building out from there intentionally and consciously. When you're not reacting to things, you spend way more time in that place. And it's a fun, creative place to be in partnership and teamwork, especially during life transitions and times of stress, right? Like maybe you're going through a job change, maybe your child is sick. There's a lot of things that we go through. The last thing you want is to be turning on each other during hard times. Terry Real always says this: couples don't have problems, couples are problems. A lot of times people will tell me it's the stressors that are causing the problems. That's not true. If you are a unit and you're in the us place and you're not reactive and you can stay in a place of teamwork, you can handle and walk through anything together. So the question then is, how do we become less reactive? And I wanted to say, like I said at the beginning, it takes time. This is not something you can do overnight because it's nothing less than reconditioning your subconscious programming and your biology and to cultivate practices that help you stay connected to yourself. So the first thing is to recondition programs at the subconscious level, which means identifying your limiting beliefs, what's getting activated, know what they are. Notice that your mind is going to this really negative, catastrophic place. Oh, I noticed that when my spouse doesn't answer me right away, I immediately assume they don't care or aren't listening. That's my automatic assumption. What's that about? What's the core belief behind that? And what do I need to believe instead, right? That's the thing you have to do, is create new beliefs and then bring them into your body through, there's several ways you can do this, through affirmations like cognitive behavioral therapy, which is very much frontal lobe. It's very much repetition, telling yourself over and over again until it filters down, right? This works for a lot of people. For me, I think even better is really bringing in your senses and pulling that into your body and creating a heightened emotional state around that. Because if you're just telling yourself something, part of your brain might be like, yeah, that's BS. I don't really believe that. So you have to create an elevated emotion that corresponds with a new belief. So visualizing that and thinking about what does it look like, sound like, feel like if this new belief was actually true, right? And you get excited about it and you create the feeling of it inside your body, that will make it stick way faster than I'm just telling myself I am loved and connected. Like you have to bring it into your gut and into your body. And eventually that really just becomes your new habit, is to operate from this new assumption, which think about how much less reactivity you would have if your automatic assumptions and your core beliefs were changed, right? Because that's really at the root of everything. What you can do to create the heightened emotional state with this stuff is to activate both hemispheres of the brain at the same time, creating a whole brain state. All of the modalities that I think are the best draw from the same split brain research, which is you have to activate both hemispheres of your brain at the same time because they're separate. You want them firing at the same time or alternating, but at the same time, right? And in that whole brain state, you're able to internalize new beliefs. You're able to bring it in so that you can remember it and you can operate from that new assumption much, much faster, right? It's much more laborious if you don't do that. And some of the techniques that will help you do that are hypnotherapy, neuro-linguistic programming, NLP for short, cognitive behavioral therapy. But I really recommend, if you are doing that, I love the premise of it, but just make sure you engage your senses in that. What does it look like, sound like, feel like, right? You want to do that. Anything that uses muscle testing that you can check to make sure that it's actually gone in, that you now do believe what it is that you've reconditioned yourself to believe. And tapping. EFT tapping is also a really great modality for that. This is something that we do systematically inside of the program that I run, the Couples Cure, where we put those practices into place right away, like week 2, identifying what are my limiting beliefs, how do we craft new beliefs, how do I then internalize these new beliefs every day. You're also combining that with looking at your vision, because if you have a specific vision of how you want to be in the relationship, then you have to think about, what do I need to believe for that to feel easy? Right? So first is the vision, then is the internalizing of these new beliefs. It is the secret sauce for all relationship transformation. I think that I just get sick of hearing myself say this over and over again. And I apologize if you've heard me say this before a million times, but you can know all the things and you won't use them. You won't remember them when it counts without this. So this is the key. The other thing that's really helpful is to engage in some kind of daily practice of calming techniques. There's a lot of really great breathing techniques. There's a lot out about the vagus nerve. Like the holistic psychologist, I forget her name, she wrote a book and she talks a lot about practices. Doing the work in her book is about engaging the vagus nerve and helping your autonomic nervous system, so that, because it's physiological and there are things that you can do that don't involve your thoughts, just physical things. Like one thing that's supposed to help is putting your face in ice water, or cold therapy, cold plunge therapy, or really intense breathing techniques. There's things that you can do that will help your nervous system stay calm on a preventative level. And maybe you're familiar with these. Also, meditation is huge. I just came back from a meditation workshop, and I'm telling you, my body feels different. Your brain waves change, and then that changes your physiology. It can change your microbiome. It can change your heart rate variability. It absolutely helps you lengthen the time between stimulus and response. That's undisputed. And most people think they're bad at meditating, but there is no such thing as that. It's really just about practicing using that muscle of noticing when your mind has wandered and bringing it back to the thing that you chose to focus on, whether it's your breath, whether it's something guided. It doesn't matter. It's just the idea of I'm in control of my mind, and I'm flexing that muscle so many times through practice and repetition with meditation that I am aware of my thoughts now. So when I get reactive, I'm aware of it. It gets in there. It like gets in there between the thing that activates you and stops you from just reacting in a knee-jerk fashion. So I highly recommend. I'm almost thinking about making that required inside of my program. And then finally, mindfulness practices. Mindfulness, just tuning into the present moment wherever you are. I can feel my butt in the chair. I can see the leaves fluttering in the wind. I can feel the sun on my face. It's literally just, what do I feel here and now in my senses? Getting out of our heads, getting out of the future tripping, getting out of the rumination of the past, and just bringing us back to the present moment also helps a ton with reactivity. And no amount of intention will get you there. You just have to be willing to do the work. A lot of times when people hear that, they are concerned, like, oh, that's going to be too much work. But it's not any more work than the fights you're already having. Right? It's not any more work than the energy that you're holding in your body to protect yourself or to be in disconnection. It is so draining. It is so draining. And to be in harmony and peace and to stay regulated takes so much less energy that it's absolutely worth engaging in the work and actually doing the work for these calming practices. That's the first step, right? And then another thing you can do is just physically take care of your body, increasing your dopamine naturally, exercise, sun, good sleep, healthy food, all the things you already know, that will help you be healthy physically. But also, we don't think about that. We don't think about how physical our mental state actually is. How much we can change our mental state and our nervous system reaction simply through taking care of our bodies. This is something that it's the gateway, right? It's the gateway between our biological person and our higher self, our capacity for spiritual and creative evolution and creating experiences in our lives that we've never had before. So taking care of your body is going to be a really big part of it, because it affects your energy. It affects the frequencies inside your body, which affects how you feel and what you then think, right? So it all plays into each other. The other thing is, in order to take care of your body, in order to support these practices, that if you're thinking, okay, I really want to start meditating, or I really want to join a community, or I really want to be around other people who are calm to help me stay calm, make sure that you're around others who are doing the same work. Get with people that make you feel calm. Don't spend a lot of time with people that, if you spend time with certain people and then you come home and now you're so dysregulated that it's coming out onto your spouse, that's not a move I would recommend continuing, right? You might have to really think very intentionally about, what environments am I putting myself in? And also, what can I do to support my environment at home? Whether it's just the physical environment, or whether it's the people that you're surrounding yourself with, your roommates, your extended family that are living with you, whatever the case may be. And then also, the final thing I want to say is to set your intentions every single day. You set your intentions to be mindful, to be intentional about not reacting and giving yourself the opportunity to just not say anything. You don't have to have the perfect response. You don't have to know what to say. You don't have to know what tool to use. All you have to do is not react. If you can do that, you're winning. Let's say your partner says something really rude. You don't have to say anything. You don't have to formulate an I statement. If you feel that you're getting triggered, just don't say anything. That's a pattern interrupt in and of itself. And that's a really powerful move. Sometimes if somebody says something rude to you and you don't react and it doesn't escalate, all they have is the sound of their voice echoing into the silence. They're just left with the last words that were said out of their mouth. And that can be a really powerful way to disrupt escalation in your marriage, especially if you get triggered by the things that your spouse does. So with that said, last thing I want to mention is, if you want help with this, please know that you can book a free call with our team, a discovery call, to find out, how escalation or dysregulation or reactivity is showing up in your unique relationship. Everybody's dynamics are different. Everybody's histories are different. And we can get a better understanding of what the barriers are, what would need to look like, where to start for you in your situation, and to, come up with a game plan. There's no obligation. It is a free call. And we'll put the link in below. And feel free to book a call just to talk it through and see if we can point you in the right direction on your own, or what you would really need to be looking for in the supports that you find. And if you feel like you want to join us in our work, we can explain that to you as well. Either way. That's it for today. If you like my content, please take a second and either like this video or subscribe to my channel, or both. That will help us reach the people that really need to hear this stuff.